Hi, I'm Jess Pressland, the CEO of the JP Group. I've been developing managers for over 20 years. In this podcast, I'm going to be sharing my stories and insights to where leaders get it wrong and what they can do to get it right, wherever you are in your leadership journey. In this episode, we're going to be looking at why emotional intelligence is every leader's greatest advantage. In simple terms, it's actually the ability to understand yourself and understand the impact you have on others. Impact and not intention. So the ability to understand yourself and the impact you have on others. I repeated that deliberately because it's really important. A lot of people misunderstand this because they think they know themselves. The reality is very different because they focus on their intention. So I intended to do this. They're thinking about what their intention was, and it's not how it actually landed. So your ability to be self-aware, and I'll give you an example of this. So it could be that you thought you were being direct, but actually it landed as intimidating. So you're thinking, oh, I'm going to give a really direct message, but how it's landed, that's the impact on somebody else, was not as you intended. So it is the impact. I'll share a story with you. This is a little while ago now, but I still refer to it because it makes me laugh because this is like one of the biggest light bulb moments I think I've ever seen in a training room. I was working with an organization and I was working with a group of managers and a group of their support team. So it was two programs running parallel at the same time. So when I was working with a support team, when we were talking about genuine understanding, we were talking about building rapport. And one of the ladies in the group, she said, my manager thinks he shows genuine understanding to me. She was cross. And I was like, oh, why? And she said, well, he says to me, how are the kids? I have been his administrator for 9 months. How are the kids? And some of you might be listening thinking, well, that's all right. How are the kids? That's quite a nice thing to say. Her response to that was, he wouldn't know if they were boys or girls, 2 or 20. Okay. And I literally cracked up. It was so funny. But I knew I was training him. And I'm quite good at having a poker face sometimes. And I knew that when I was training him and we were talking about this subject in a different context, I was thinking I was going to have to go around the houses to make him increase his emotional intelligence, to make him realize that his intention was not having that impact. So we talked about showing genuine interest in your team members. And I was expecting to go around the houses, but actually, Mark, we'll call him Mark, literally put his hand up and he goes, well, I show genuine interest in my administrator because I ask her how the kids are. And literally, I've never had to have such a poker face. So I was like, that's great, Mark. What has she got? Boys or girls? And how old are they? And he literally fell to the desk with his hands in his face. Everyone in the room went, Mark, do you not know what Janice's children are? And he was like, no. He was like, what do I do, Jess? What do I do? Because I can't go up to her with a clipboard. What are their names? What have you got? Authenticity is really important in leadership, and I can't script somebody in what to do. So we were like, so what are you going to do? How can you turn this around? And he said, I'm going to ask her tomorrow if she's doing anything nice at the weekend. And I said to him, but you do need to realise, because you've been saying this, how are the kids, for a very long time, and you actually don't know anything about her children at all. I said, she may not be forthcoming in sharing what she's doing at the weekend, in which case you don't give up, you just keep trying. He asked her what she was up to at the weekend, anything nice. And she said, I'm taking the boys swimming. So then on Monday, he then went up to her and said, how was swimming with the boys this weekend? And she actually was forthcoming and she said it was great. Anyway, it transpires that his wife took his children, his boys, to the same swimming pool for swimming lessons. And it kind of went from there. It did take him 3 months to build that relationship back up. From her saying, he thinks he shows genuine interest, right? To them having a good relationship. And I really like it because obviously I work with businesses for long periods of time, and they did turn it around, and I have never sort of, spoken to her about it because I needed them to build it back. But this is about emotional intelligence, and he thought he was doing the right thing. And what he was doing was actually landing very differently. It is about knowing yourself, and that's the key. And to know yourself, you need to know what frustrates you. Those are what are your triggers? What annoys you? What frustrates you? Also, what energizes you? Do you know how you react under pressure? Think about all of those emotions and where do they come from in yourself? That's really important. With leaders, it's not that they don't get frustrated, but what you need to know is that as a leader, if I'm aware what frustrates me, I'm not going to react in a way of frustration. I need to pause because I need to make sure that I choose my response. being a leader isn't about like reacting to a situation. It's about being a thoughtful responder. So you can respond as you see that as appropriate, but it's a conscious decision that you've made. That's really important. Emotionally intelligent leaders will also be curious and they'll ask lots of questions. You need to seek information. I see a lot of leaders, they make assumptions about things. So someone's done this because they're lazy, because they're this. Actually, you've actually asked the question. So be curious and ask questions. And if you are wanting to increase your emotional intelligence, you need to seek feedback. You need to ask those questions and not be defensive to the answer, because it may not be necessarily what you want to hear, but it's really valuable. And going back to my story, part of it was about building a relationship. And that's genuine interest, not ticking a box for how the children are. Build a relationship genuinely because you care about your people. And if people feel seen, then they will give more. So emotional intelligence, build those relationships. There are actually like 4 areas of emotional intelligence. The first one we've spoken about, which is about being self-aware. Because if you're self-aware, you can self-manage, which is what I was just talking about. If you're aware of yourself and your triggers and your frustrations, you can then manage your response. If somebody was to say that to me, how should I respond to that? Not the reaction. That's the second part. And then the other element is about other people, building relationships and being aware of other people and recognizing emotions in others so that you can then manage that relationship by flexing too. So if you see somebody is frustrated, you see somebody change their behavior, you're able to respond to that appropriately because you're aware of it. And it sounds so simple, but this is not happening in the workplace very often at all. And yet, if I was to ask a leader, are you emotionally intelligent? They'd be like, yeah. Literally out of the hundreds and hundreds of managers that I've taught over the years, I probably reckon about 90% think they have high emotional intelligence, which actually probably flip it round. And it's probably about 10% that actually do. So don't just say yes, you need to challenge these things. And the last part of it is about social awareness, which is your ability to read a room. So if you're a leader and you're giving a meeting to your team, can you read that room? Because how many times have I seen leaders stand up there and deliver a message and they are not seeing how that is being received? They're not seeing the change in behaviour that people have started to get cross or sulk, or they've changed that because they didn't like that message. They're just delivering it because they're so focused on themselves and the delivery of that message. They're not actually reading the room to the change in behaviours to everybody else in the room. So something that very conscious as a trainer I have to do, because I've got to read the room. I have to read the room to see if people are engaged and listening, and no one's ever dozed off on me yet. But those are the signals that you need to be looking for. So 4 assets. Don't just be listening and thinking, yeah, I have good emotional intelligence. You need to look to build it. And the first part of that would be understand yourself by questioning what are your triggers, what are your frustrations, and then go and seek feedback, because anyone can build emotional intelligence, and literally it is a massive greatest advantage for you to be able to get the best out of your people. Thank you for listening to this episode. Visit our website, thejpgroup.org, the podcast page, where you can download our workbook that accompanies this series for you to take what you've heard and put it into practice.